Thousand people strong.
Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago, guys. This morning we are heading over to another interesting topic. This morning we are talking about Girls of Impact. The mentee applications are now open. This morning we are chatting with Dr. Colin Young, who is virtual with us this morning, who is the Executive Director of Girls of Impact. Good morning, Dr. Young, and welcome. So this morning, the Girls of Impact program has to do with female-led leadership. And this morning, we will be chatting about that program and how you can get your daughters involved. The program is extended to women between the age of 18 to 30. And this has to do with leadership training, community service projects, personal and professional development workshops, certificates upon completion, small group mentorship, and this is going to be happening from the 5th of July to the 6th of September 2025. It's a 10-week program where young women will be engaged to help them develop themselves as it pertains to starting life as a career woman, being a leader, politics, decorum, diplomacy, and all the things that have to do with being a girl of impact. My producer will let me know as soon as I have a connection with Dr. Young so that we can continue our conversations this morning. But if you are interested, you can visit their pages or send them an email. You see the contact information at the bottom of the screen. You can reach out to them at Girls of Impact 868 on TikTok or Instagram, Girls of Impact TNT on Facebook and LinkedIn. And you can also send them an email at girlsofimpact.org. And this is if you are interested personally, you know someone, or you want to have your daughter or a young woman that's close to you involved in the program. So good morning, Dr. Young, and welcome. I think I'm having a bit of an issue hearing you. Is your mic on? So as I was saying, the program has to do with helping young women become girls of impact. It has to do with training, mentorship, and leadership to help guide young women who are between the ages of 18 to 30. And so this morning we are going to have that conversation with Dr. Young as it pertains to enrollment and what young women can expect from this 10-week program. As soon as we can get that audio up, we will be having that conversation. Now, I'm going to ask my producer to put that flyer on the screen again for you in case you are interested. So remember, you can go to info@girlsofimpact.org, send them an email right there. You can visit their Instagram and TikTok pages as well as their Facebook and LinkedIn. And as you can see on the flyer, the application process closes on the 15th of June. But I'm guessing we are chatting with Dr. Young, so there probably is an extension on that application. So you can still send in your inquiries there. And there is a link on the flyer where you can go to girlsofimpact.org/mentorship. All right. I hope that we have Dr. Young online with us. Now, Dr. Young, are you there? Okay, he seems to be having a bit of a connectivity issue. So we'll take a quick break right here and we'll be back right after this. See you soon. Good morning and welcome back. Now we do have Dr. Colin Young, who's the Executive Director of Girls of Impact, joining us this morning. Welcome back, Dr. Young.
Good morning and thanks for having me.
Excellent. So as I introduced you earlier and the program, tell us why it's so important for young women in Trinidad and Tobago to become involved and engaged in projects like these, And there is a application closing date on your flyer that says June 15th. Is that still applicable?
Hi. The the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center was set up by CARICOM heads of government in 2002 to coordinate the region's response to climate change. Climate change is one of an existing issue for many of our countries in the region, and women and girls are a group of persons who are especially vulnerable to the effects of climate change. And so the center has been working over the last 20 years in trying to build climate resilience across the Caribbean region, but particularly to ensure that the most vulnerable persons in our societies are, in fact, more resilient to the effects of climate change. And so, from a 5Cs point of view, we have, in fact, pursued a number of projects that seek to build the awareness and increase the participation of young women and girls to become more active in the climate change space, especially in terms of sitting at the table for decision making and helping to draft and craft policies to help build the resilience of our people across the region.
Excellent. And even as it pertains to the work that you are doing, as it pertains to, a work at CARICOM and your response to climate change, women and girls are a vulnerable community, but what other communities have you been working with?
Well, as a CARICOM institution, we work with all CARICOM member states in the region, and so we 15 countries in the region that we work with. But we also work with trying to ensure that all elderly people, persons with diverse abilities, as well as indigenous people, that they're also um, being provided with information and data that can help them to become more resilient in the effects of climate change. I think many of us take for granted the fact that during an emergency like a hurricane or floods that require our people to move quickly from one location to another, perhaps to a hurricane shelter or to a shelter, that many of us can just get up and move and go quickly. But there are many in our societies that may not have the same luxury to move, and as a result, how do we work with these communities to ensure that they can be relocated safely? I think the 5Cs, as a CARICOM institution, obviously we work through the national governments, and the national governments have their own national emergency management plans. What we have been trying to do is to work with countries to help to build the resilience of the structures, the hurricane shelters in some of our countries, to ensure that in the event that there's a hurricane, that there is going to be energy. For example, in Belize, we have a hurricane shelter that was equipped with solar panels to ensure that if there's a loss of electricity, that shelter can, in fact, still have power. There's emergency communication equipment, and there would be water tanks that can provide the shelter with 3 days of water supply. We've done the same in Barbados, where we are building the resilience of hospitals to ensure that they also have water in the event that there is a hurricane disruptions. We've helped retrofitted schools in the Bahamas and St. Lucia, and the same for communities. So building resilience to the effects of climate change require several interventions, and we help our governments to try to do so. And when you prepare and build resilience for the most vulnerable in our society, then obviously you're building resilience for everybody at the same time.
Excellent. And there are persons who have not been exposed or understand what the five C's are as it pertains to the work that you have been doing in the Caribbean, which stands for Caribbean Community Climate Change Center. But, you know, for persons who were unaware of the type of work that you do and want to get involved with the work that you are doing, tell them a bit about how they can do that.
Thank you very much. The 35 Cs, as I said very briefly earlier, was established in 2002 by CARICOM heads of government with a mandate to coordinate the region's response to climate change. So even then, the heads of government recognized that climate change would become one of the most serious challenges of our generation, and they established a center to actually help the region coordinate in this regard. So we provide really three core services to our member states. The first one is that we work to ensure that the climate change data and information is being collected and analyzed so that our governments and persons can make evidence-based decision making. So, for example, we've been working with countries to install automatic weather stations across CARICOM member countries that collect real-time information that is provided to the Met offices to help them in their forecasts and in advising the public. Secondly, we help countries mobilize financing money for climate resilient actions on the ground. We have a program development and management department at the center staffed with capable persons who write projects on behalf of our countries. And we submit these projects to donor agencies and entities like the Green Climate Fund, the Adaptation Fund, as well as bilateral partners like the government of Canada, the government of Italy, and the government of the United Kingdom, for example, to raise resources to help our countries adapt to the effects of climate change. And that can be in various areas, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in renewable energy, whether it's in the water sector, or any other area, municipal resilience, like ensuring that the drains are deep enough and wide enough to accommodate the larger amounts of rainfall that we're seeing from climate change. And then the third core service we provide to member states is in readying and helping to prepare the region to effectively participate in the annual Conference of Parties that is held. This is the International Climate Change Negotiations. And so the five Cs would then bring together CARICOM negotiators and climate change ministers from our member states twice a year to help to bring the region together to prioritize the set of actions that they would pursue at these international climate change negotiations. So climate change is impacting all of our countries because we're very vulnerable to the effects of climate change, but we're small. And as a result of that smallness, sometimes we don't have the number of persons to be able to participate in all of the negotiations and being in all of the rooms at the same time at these big, large global conferences. And so when you have a coordination where persons help to fill in the gap from a country, but that same person then provides support to all of the region, that is one of the key services that the five Cs also provides to our member state.
Pertains to your responsibility overseeing a number of CARICOM nations as it pertains to climate change and climate change resilience and development. How does one narrow down what type of projects you are investing in? How do you say, okay, this is exactly what we are aiming towards achieving and these projects align with that?
That's a very good question. The five Cs is actually a country-driven organization. We are established to serve our member states and our countries, and as a result, we pursue projects that are prioritized by the countries. So in the climate change space, many of our countries in the region have what we call nationally determined contributions, the NDCs. This is a document that outlines the number of actions that governments want to pursue to help to build the resilience of the country and its people to the effects of climate change. So there are projects on the what we call the mitigation side. Those are projects that seek to reduce the dependence on fossil fuels and transition the economy to a more green, sustainable economy. And then there are projects on what we call the adaptation side. These are the projects that seek to improve the resilience of the countries to the effects of climate change. For example, I talked about drainage. I talk about ensuring that the agriculture industry, the water industry is more resilient to climate change. And so most of the times, our member countries approach the 5Cs and request assistance in helping them to develop these projects for submission to the various donors. We also have a group of project managers in the program development and management department that then helps the countries to manage these projects on behalf of the donor. We have teams of procurement persons, we have gender specialists, we have environmental and social safeguard specialists, and together we provide a project management support for our member states.
Right.
We've been relatively successful in this space, where since 2004, the 5Cs has mobilized over 250 million US dollars for climate action across the 15 CARICOM member states.
Okay. And can individual companies reach out to the 5Cs directly, or do they have to go through their government? And are you more likely to fund government-based projects opposed to private sector-based projects or NGO-based projects?
The 5Cs work with a variety of partners. However, we are an intergovernmental organization that works primarily through our member states. We have, through the work with the member states, however, supported civil society organizations and community-based groups. And I would encourage our listeners, if they want to hear more about the 5Cs, is to visit us at our website at www.caribbeanclimate.org. We are also on Instagram and Facebook, LinkedIn, and you'll be able to see how the 5Cs can engage with you. We also are very intent in working with schools and school children to ensure that both the awareness of climate change is understood are increased in the region. We have identified that there is a significant gap across CARICOM in terms of our populations understanding climate change, but more importantly, what are some of those things that they can do, in fact, to build their resilience. We also have, for example, developed what we call a 1.5 to stay alive educational curriculum that we have been rolling out and testing in Belize and intent on rolling out through CARICOM to ensure that our young people are very aware of climate change, but as I said, not only becoming aware, but knowing what is it that they can do to help improve the resilience of the effects of climate change.
Excellent. And even as we round up our discussion this morning, how important is it for persons to get engaged with those localization campaigns as it pertains to raising awareness for climate change locally?
It's extremely important. I think we live in a time that is unprecedented in our history when we look at the effects of climate change. Last year, for example, was the warmest year on record. The last 10 years has been the hottest 10 years on record for recorded history. And so we're seeing an increasing frequency of climate-related disasters. We're seeing more storms, we're seeing stronger hurricanes, we're seeing more floods, we're seeing more droughts, we're seeing increased disease and pests. We're seeing all of these climate-related events happening at the same time. And before you could get a recovery from one major event, you're being hit by another. And so the capacity of our infrastructure and the capacity of our response is obviously being undermined because of climate related disasters. Because of this, it is absolutely important that entities like the Five Cs continue to work with member governments and like minded organizations and institutions to build the understanding and awareness of climate change and to provide persons with the tools that they would need to ensure that they can build their resilience to the effects of climate change. For example, in Barbados, we have a project where we would have installed over 1,500 personal water tanks in homes of those who are very vulnerable to allow them to be able to harvest rainwater. That in the event that there is a hurricane or a storm that impacts the ability of the country to provide water to these households, that they now have their own personal water supply to cover the period until the water system can get back on track. So the same thing for farmers. Farmers who are dealing with droughts and unable to grow their crops, or who have too much water that floods their fields. How can we work with them to ensure that they can either increase the drainage, or they can provide irrigation using solar energy to provide water to their fields? So these are all ways in which, if people were aware and they have access to the tools, or including, for example, seeds that are more tolerant to droughts, these are ways that people can actually build their resilience to climate change. And as we've been seeing, the effects of climate change would continue to haunt us for years to come.
Excellent. And finally, even as it pertains to different type of projects, for example, housing projects that are focused around sustainable energy and sustainable water supply and water storage, are those the type of projects that governments as well as entities can come to the Five Cs to get funding for?
Yes. Yes, we have a diverse portfolio of projects that span those areas. So it's infrastructure, both in terms of municipal infrastructure, in terms of climate resilient housing, also the water sector. Believe it or not, the region has 8 of the top 30 most water scarce countries in the world. So water security is a big issue in our region. We also pursue renewable energy projects in the region, and we try to do projects that build resilience across a number of sectors at the same time. So we are particularly interested in projects that would say increase water security using renewable energy, but at the same time improving the food security of our countries by ensuring that farmers would have access to the tools and water to build resilience. I do want to take this very quick opportunity to also tell our viewers and listeners that this year, 2025, the Five Cs is actually celebrating its 20th anniversary as a CARICOM institution. We are marking this significant event with a 20th anniversary celebrations and award banquet that is being held on the 25th of June in Belize City, Belize. And we have several dignitaries, ministers. We have the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, who is joining us in Belize. He is the chair of the Quasi-Cabinet on Sustainable Development for CARICOM. And the celebration is being hosted jointly by the Prime Minister of Belize, the Honorable John Briceño. So we are hoping to tell the story of the Five Cs and more importantly, the work that it has been doing over the 20 plus years, and how we will continue to work with our countries to positively impact the lives and livelihoods of the millions of people across our region.
Excellent. And Dr. Young, I just want to apologize for the mix-up that we had in the beginning as it pertains to the Girls of Impact program on our rundown this morning. But we want to say thank you so much for coming here and joining us on Tobago Updates and giving us that invitation as you are celebrating this year in 2025. We will definitely be sharing the word with everyone else. And it is interesting to note the type of funding that is available through the 5Cs within the region and all the work that you have done and continue to do as it pertains to building climate resilience within the region. So we want to say thank you, and we look forward to speaking with you and your organization again very soon.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Excellent. We're going to take a quick break right here, and we're going to return with much more conversation right after this. See you soon.